made the discovery that no matter where I sit in my room, the lighting is going to be terrible, so I may as well choose to sit where I find it most comfortable and where the background is kind of pretty. For now, we're here, but in the future I will tweak things and maybe we'll eventually come to a place that I actually like to sit and film most of my sit down videos. But without further ado, let's actually tell you what we're talking about here. This is a seasonal TBR. I film these at the start of every single season. Summer, of course, because I am in the Northern Hemisphere. Though I did want to say that for a little portion of the summer, 2.5 weeks around there, I will be going to Australia, which is in winter, and they will be in the dead of winter when I'm over there. This means that I will probably pick up some sort of wintry book, but I haven't decided what I want that to be. And I'm also kind of toying with the idea of only taking my Kindle on that trip, so I don't know what the book is we're going to be getting to there, but I think I might start The Two Towers, the second Lord of the Rings book, seeing as I'm in the middle of that series, at least for the plane. I think the audiobook would be nice to listen along to and kind of comforting on my 24-hour trip. As a mood reader, I've tried to choose a range of genres, so hopefully, even if I don't get to all of these books, there'll be one that I'm in the mood for no matter what point I am throughout the summer and what I'm feeling. We've got sci-fi, literary fiction, fantasy, non-fiction, romance. Is that it? I think so. The first book I'm so excited about because it's actually a book that I bought in store recently, and that is because it is a new release, Atmosphere by Jenkins Reid. As well as being a huge TGR fan and so wanting to pick this up anyways, I really want to get into my sci-fi era. I don't know what that is about, but I really want to be there. There's so many sci-fi books I want to pick up. It's not sci-fi in the sense that it's like, you know, aliens on some planet in space, but it is astronauts, so we're probably set on the ship, I would think, mostly, and it's astronauts in the 1980s. I picked up this amazing copy in Waterstones that has the sprayed edges, though they're not brilliant quality, and it also is signed by TGR, which makes my second signed book by her, because I actually found Daisy Jones and the Six when it first came out signed as well, so super lucky to have a little collection of her books because she is truly, honestly, one of my favourite authors. I always think I have favourite authors and then I list through like my ratings for the book. For example, Sally Rooney I would say was a favourite author, but then I've rated her books 3.5 stars, 5 stars and 3 stars, so actually just because she's the author of one of my favourite books of all time, in reality she's probably not a favourite author. Jenkins Reid, I've read tons of her books and I've never rated anything lower than a 4, 3 or 2 of her books have been 5-star reads, so she definitely is a favourite author, so I'm very excited to pick up Atmosphere at some point. I don't love sci-fi. That's, I think, is part of the reason why I want to try and deep dive into it, because I want to force myself to like it, because it's something that in some ways should align with my interests because I love fantasy, but just the idea of space, it interests me. I like the kind of retro space of the 1960s and 70s within film. I'm not interested in going to space, I think that's the thing, but either way we'll go there through the book. Next up is a book that I'm sure if you're a subscriber you're all bored of me talking about, because this has been one that I've owned for several years now and put it on last year's summer TBR, maybe even the one before that if I filmed it back then, and that is My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. This is the first book in the Neapolitan Quartet. My mum has read and loved these. Every single person I know has read and loved these. I slowly collected these books through the charity shop, so I've got the entire collection of 4 books to read. They're all lined up on my shelves ready for me, and I just never have got around to it. This is on my 2025 TBR, so it's kind of imperative that I read it this year. Summer is the perfect time for it because we are in Naples in Italy, and it's about this friendship between these 2 girls. It's just meant to be beautiful. It's such an amazing depiction of female friendship, particularly from like childhood to adulthood and beyond. Some people I watch on YouTube have also recently read this, and they've kind of given me the urge to pick it up. Elena and Carissa, I think, are the 2 people I've seen most recently read it and just fall in love with it head over heels. Hopefully this summer is the time. If I don't get to this, I would be quite surprised. I'm going to try and prioritise this. On a completely different note, we have a romance book. This is Lost and Lassoed by Lyla. This is the 3rd book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series, which is a cowboy romance series that I've had a very interesting relationship with. First book, done and dusted, I gave 3 stars, but it was probably more of a 2.5. I really disliked that book actually. Second book, Swift and Saddled, 4.5 stars, one of my favourite romance books of all time. I'm very, very picky when it comes to the romance genre, so that was pretty impressive. Lost and Lassoed, I'm excited for this couple because we've kind of been getting hints of their story throughout the other books, but I don't know where I'm going to sit. So Lost and Lassoed follows Teddy and Gus. Gus is part of the Ryder family, which is the main family that we follow in the series, and then Teddy, I believe, is the best friend of one of the characters from the other book, something along those lines. Like I said, I don't know how I'm going to feel about this. I do love reading these books in the summer though, because cowboy vibes, you know, makes me think of the warmer weather, and you know, the cowboy fashion is so fun and stuff like that. So this should just be a quick little kind of palette cleanser. I actually read the second book in this series in a 24-hour readathon. It was perfect for that environment, so maybe we'll do something along those lines this year. I don't know. I really don't want to hold myself to that though. I am slightly concerned because this is blurbed by Elena, who is the author of The Spanish Love Deception, which was a 1.5-star read for me. So that doesn't instill fear in me, but I mean, whatever, it's a pretty cover, isn't it? Regardless, I think it'll be a fun time, even if it's a fun bad time. Next up, I have De André's Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. This is the book that inspired the film Blade Runner, so I've got this amazing movie cover. The only time I will make an exception and pick up a movie cover, because it's such an iconic poster. I'm reading this because of my love for the film. I love both of the Blade Runner films, and there's a special kind of video concept I have in mind, which I would need to read this book for, so there's that. This is also another book on my 2025 TBR. It's a sci-fi. We're getting into our sci-fi era. I don't know, I'm just intrigued, basically. It's short. I think it should be quite profound because the concepts that are explored within the Blade Runner films, to me, feel like they might translate better through a book. I don't know. The films are fantastic though. And so much of the story is its visuals, so we will see. But I'm really, really intrigued to see the differences between the book and the film and how I go along with this. We have a non-fiction collection of essays. I'm not going to talk about too much because, like my brilliant friend, I've droned on and on about this book on this channel, and this is too much and not the mood. A lyrical and piercingly insightful cluster of essays meet prose poetry about identity and culture. I think it's going to be fantastic, and I've said this a gazillion times as well, but this author is the director of the new Bonjour Tristesse adaptation. It's already out in the US, but it's coming out in the UK, I think, next month, so I'm gonna get a picture of her work before I go and see her debut film. Also love a bit of non-fiction. I feel like I read non-fiction every single summer. I don't know, you have the time to sit down and really bite into something and chew on it. Okay, next up we have Hot Milk by Deborah Levy. This is another book that is being adapted, or has been adapted. The film in the UK, again, there's a delay on it, it doesn't come out as quickly as in the US, but I'm excited about this. About a mother and daughter who travel to south of Spain, I believe, for the mother's health. She's going to see a specialist, and it's about their relationship and also what they get up to on this trip and their travels. I really like Deborah Levy. She's like a really solid 4-star author for me. Seeing as we've been in conversation about it, definitely one of my favourite authors. I just think this is going to be great. I feel like the vibe's going to be so fantastic. I've heard from Cass that this is her favourite Levy, so, or at least one of her favourite Levies, so even more excited to pick it up. Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. This is a book that I have a feeling I'm gonna hate, but I own books 1, 2 and 3, the entire trilogy. I would need to pick up this first book and see if I like it, because if not, I can unhaul the entire series and that would be incredibly satisfying. I'm gonna go into this with an open mind. It scares me off because the negative reviews I've heard about this book, they mention things that I personally would also hate, so that's great. As well as it being 500 pages, and 500 pages for a contemporary romance book, that doesn't add up in my brain. I do love these covers though, I think they're so beautiful. It's one of my favourite romance covers. I don't really know what this is about. Bearded bad boy Barber Knox prefers to live his life the way he takes his coffee, alone. How do I go into this with an open mind? Naomi wasn't just running away from her wedding, she was riding to the rescue of her strange twin in a small town. Too bad for Naomi, her evil twin hasn't changed at all. I think I do remember this actually. The people in the small town think that she's her sister, and her sister is hated within the town. So she gets treated really badly upon like re-entry to it, or entry to it, I don't know. And she meets this man who also hates her. So it's kind of enemies to lovers, Grumpy meets Sunshine. I'm really unsure about this, but yeah, I'm gonna give it a go. We might DNF, we might switch to the audiobook, that could be kind of good, or at least do the whole immersive reading thing where you like read along while you're listening to get through this. But I want to do the thing and then potentially unhaul the series or continue it. You know, who knows, maybe this will be so fun. Maybe this will just be like a mindless, silly fun time. Another silly fun time that should hopefully be quite mindful is Slow Days Fast Company, The World, the Flesh in LA by Eve Babitz. This is another collection of Babbitt's work that I've been wanting to read for years at this point, honestly. I finally finished my first Babbitt's collection last year. That was I Used to Be Charming, but that was a much thicker book. This one is so small. No one burned hotter than Eve Babbitt's, possessing skin that radiated its own kind of moral laws, spectacular teeth and a figure that was the stuff of legend. She seduced seemingly everyone who was anyone in Los Angeles for a long stretch of the 1960s and 70s. One man proved elusive, however, and so Babbitt did what she did best. She wrote him a book. And I love this line at the end. It says, "In the end, it doesn't matter if Babbitt ever gets the guy, she seduces us." This is gonna be a riot, I feel. I'm so excited. Babbitt writes this kind of journalistic work. She doesn't show up to these events like as a journalist, or even if she does, she always is interviewing people who she gets on very well with, or has some sort of history with, or some connection beyond her doing this report on them or writing an article on them. So it does feel like she's really like part of the party and not just like spectating on it. You feel like you're in the know when you read her stuff. I'm really excited for that one. This also, I'm pretty sure, is on my 2025 TBR. We have another TJR book. I didn't actually mean to do this, but I was looking at my romance bookshelf. I feel like romance is a good genre to be reading across the summer months. So I added this one into the stack kind of last minute, and it is Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This one is about this woman. She's 29. She moves to LA, or she moves back to LA to live with her best friend, I think, or whatever. She's just like moving back to LA. She meets this kind of crossroads in her life, and it's about what she decides to do. And instead of, you know, her picking a route and then us sticking with the story, at that point the story splits off and we see her living her life parallel to herself, all based on whether she decides to do this one thing and like how different her life is by either deciding to do it or deciding not to. I think it's a really fascinating concept. I'm kind of interested to see how the delivery is, but when I looked at kind of contemporary work on my shelves, of the 2 TJR books I have on my shelves, like her backlist, one True Loves, Maybe in Another Life, this one just felt like it kind of aligned with me where I'm at in my life, so I decided to pick this one up. It's kind of, I don't know, we'll see. I definitely prefer her newer stuff over her older stuff, but I still had a very fun time with After I Do. I kind of went into that expecting to give it 3 stars and came out with 4, so we'll see. And then the final book, this is the main fantasy book I want to be reading across the summer, as well as finishing The Tandem, because I'm still reading that. That's taking me a lifetime. But this is really exciting. It is very chunky. I was kind of looking through my fantasy shelves. I was like, I need to have a fantasy on this list, but nothing within the fantasy genre was screaming summer, which is not that surprising. But I'm sure, you know, I'll read maybe The Lord of the Rings on the plane to Australia, and maybe I'll take a fantasy book on my Kindle. It's probably better suited to the winter weather over there. But for now, this is a book that I would love to pick up in the summer, no matter what time it is. And that is The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent. So last year I read The Serpent and the Wings of Night. Truly one of my favourite ever books. It was a 5-star, like a 6-star read. I was so connected to that book and so fascinated by the world and the characters. I just thought that Carissa Broadbent was a genius. It is about time that I picked up the second book in that trilogy. Otherwise I will forget everything that happened in that book and go into this one very confused. As it stands, I probably need to read a summary because this is high fantasy. I did read that first book a long time ago. But yeah, I was looking at my shelves and I was like, the entire bottom of my TBR bookcase is tall hardcovers. I was like, what are those books? And then I realised that like about a quarter of that shelf is being taken up by Carissa Broadbent, and I can't read any of her other work before I've read this one, particularly because I don't want to interfere with the Crowns and Axia series. Like, I don't want to be breaking up this duology because I feel like it really threw me off. I have to pick this book up in order to clear more than just like one book off my TBR shelves, so I feel like it's important that I do this sooner rather than later. Plus, I'm just really excited to do so. Seven of the Wings of Night follows a girl called Araya, who has been raised by the current vampire ruler, or vampire king, I'm not sure what you call him, and he protects her, which is very important because the vampires prey on humans in this world. The vampires are very much, you know, like this superior species or creature. Araya, her whole life has felt very vulnerable and has known that like her safety is based on the survival of her father, pretty much. There's constantly people trying to like assassinate him or basically push him out of power so they can be in charge. And if that were to happen, then she would be dead. So she enters this competition called the Kajari, where the winner will receive a wish from the goddess. Araya is entering it with hope to wish, you know, immortality or to become a vampire and go through that process of change. So the majority of the book is that competition, is that competition-based fantasy. It's just so much fun. There's a great romance plotline in it, and the world building is fascinating and so complex and thorough. This will be my main fantasy read across the summer season. So there we have it. Can I pick up this stack? Many books I would love to read across the summer months. If you have read any of these and you enjoy them or didn't enjoy them, let me know, because I'd love to know your thoughts on these. Maybe if you really loved them, I'd prefer to hear that over you hating it, because that might spur me on to pick them up more. Otherwise I fear I might put them off further. I feel like we definitely have some 5 stars within this stack. There's so many books I'm so excited about. Let me know what you hope to get through across the season. Sending my love to you from here to wherever you may be in the world, and I'll see you super duper soon in a few days for another video. Bye bye.